single penny, just 1 cent, carrying a mistake so rare, so shocking, that it has turned ordinary pocket change into a fortune. And tonight, we're going to uncover its story. The year was 1955. America was booming. The Lincoln penny was everywhere, rattling in coffee jars, jingling in lunch counters, filling up the pockets of everyday workers. But inside the Philadelphia Mint, something happened. A hidden flaw, invisible to most, slipped past the machines and the inspectors. It was a tiny misalignment, a doubling on the die, and it created a coin that should never have existed. At first glance, it looked like any other copper penny. But look closer. The date 1955 appears doubled, almost like a ghostly shadow. The word liberty shimmers with strange overlapping letters. Even "In God We Trust" looks like it was stamped twice, one layer sliding against the other. It wasn't damage. It wasn't wear. It was a mistake born right inside the mint itself. Thousands of these flawed pennies slipped out into circulation, not because anyone wanted them to, but because the error wasn't caught until it was too late. The coins mixed into bags, shipped to banks, handed to stores, and unknowingly passed into the hands of ordinary Americans. For years, they circulated like ghosts in the machine. A child might have bought candy with one. A worker may have tossed one in a tip jar. Families could have swept them into change bowls, never realizing that fortune was hiding in plain sight. But then, the discoveries began. A man in New England noticed something strange about his change. The date looked doubled. He showed it to a dealer who gasped. The coin was no ordinary penny. It was one of the rarest errors in U.S. history. And as the word spread, collectors everywhere were stunned. Soon, whispers grew into a frenzy. Dealers rushed to track down every last example. Auctions began lighting up with shocking prices. A coin that once slipped unnoticed across a diner counter was suddenly fetching thousands, then tens of thousands. And now, in recent years, certain examples in pristine condition have sold for nearly $1.5 million. And the reason? This wasn't just any error. It was bold, dramatic, unmistakable. Unlike tiny minting mistakes that require microscopes, the 1955 double die penny shouts its error loud and clear. You can see it with the naked eye. Collectors were shocked. Historians were in disbelief. And dealers? They were rushing to get their hands on them at any cost. Not every coin with a strange shadow or blur is the real deal. Millions of ordinary pennies get scratched, worn down, or doubled from years of being struck by other coins. That's not what you want. The true treasure lies in the strong, dramatic doubling that only the 1955 issue carries. Look closely at the date. The 1 seems to echo. The 9 splits into 2. The 5s appear doubled as if stamped twice by some unseen hand. And Liberty almost looks like it's printed in double vision. And yet, thousands of people have overlooked it. Some even spent them thinking they were ordinary coins. In fact, it's said that many circulated for decades before collectors truly understood how rare they were. That means they're still out there, hidden, sitting in jars, drawers, old piggy banks, waiting for someone like you to spot them. But what makes this coin even more legendary is the survival story. Most pennies are worn down, scratched, faded from years of circulation. Only a tiny handful remain in crisp, uncirculated condition. And those are the ones bringing prices that defy belief. One collector's example changed hands for hundreds of thousands. Another brought the bidding room to silence when it soared past $1 million. Imagine it. You're holding a coin worth 1 cent and suddenly realizing it's the key to a fortune. Dealers will fly across the country for it. Collectors will fight to own it. And all because of one mistake. A tiny misalignment back in 1955 that no one at the mint could have predicted. First, don't be fooled by wear and tear. If the letters only look fuzzy or scratched, that's just damage. The Real double die is bold, dramatic, and obvious. Focus on Liberty. The L will have a ghostly shadow. The I almost splits in two. And the date, especially the 5S, looks like they were carved twice into the metal. And don't overlook condition. The sharper the details, the higher the price. A heavily circulated example can still be worth thousands. But if you somehow find one in near-mint condition, that's when you're looking at life-changing money. Collectors call it the king of all error coins. Dealers call it the holy grail of Lincoln cents. And to this day, its legend continues to grow. Because here's the truth. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It was a simple penny. Copper, worn, and ordinary. The kind of coin you've probably seen 1,000 times in change. But this penny, the 1956 Lincoln cent with a strange, hidden mark, became one of the most shocking stories in American coin collecting. For decades, people thought nothing of the 1956 pennies. They were everywhere. Kids saved them in piggy banks, shopkeepers tossed them in tills, and most were spent and forgotten. But a tiny handful carried a mysterious scar. A minting mistake so subtle that it fooled collectors for years. It's called the writ error. A faint, ghost-like doubling that seemed to spell out extra letters where none should exist. Some thought it was just scratches, others called it damage. But then one coin surfaced at auction. A small copper cent, just 1 cent in value, suddenly shocked the world when the hammer came down at over $1.4 million. Why? Because this wasn't just a coin. It was a time capsule of the U.S. Mint's hidden errors. A rare accident in the Denver Mint where a die shifted ever so slightly, leaving behind what looks like an almost secret signature. A man digging through his father's old cigar box found another. At first glance, it looked normal. A little worn, darkened with age. But then, under the light, he spotted it. The faint writ-like doubling, just above the date. That cigar box penny, once ignored for decades, became a $1 million miracle. This is why people everywhere began scouring their change. Bank rolls were torn open. Old coffee cans of pennies were poured out. Because if even one more of these coins could be found, it would change someone's life forever. Look carefully at any 1956 Lincoln penny. Focus on the date. Just above or around it, collectors say, lies the writ mark. A strange, doubled impression, like ghost letters etched in copper. If the doubling looks sharp, raised, and part of the coin itself, not just scratches or wear, you may be holding one of the rarest errors ever struck. But here's the catch. Thousands of 1956 pennies show damage, scratches, or staining that trick the eye. That's why countless people toss them aside, never realizing what they had. A true writ mark penny will show clean, distinct extra lettering.
No esmudges.
No flat scratches. Crisp, deliberate, like it was born that way. Imagine it. You empty your pockets at night. You see that old copper cent. It looks dull, ordinary. But then you notice something strange. Those ghost-like letters above the date. Your heart races. You grab a magnifying glass. And suddenly you realize you might be holding the same error that sold for $1.4 million. So remember, check every 1956 Lincoln cent you come across. Search for that hidden writ mark. Look twice, look closely, because the tiniest detail is the difference between a penny worth a cent and a penny worth over $1 million. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It's a 1944 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks like any other worn copper coin rattling at the bottom of a change jar. But behind its ordinary face lies a story of war, mistakes, and the kind of life-changing discovery that every collector dreams about. The year was 1944. America was deep in World War II. Copper was desperately needed for weapons and military equipment, so in 1943, the U.S. Mint made pennies out of steel instead. By 1944, production switched back to copper. But in the chaos of the war years, something slipped through the cracks. A handful of pennies were struck with leftover steel planchets. Some were struck on bronze planchets without mint marks. These accidents created one of the rarest and most valuable Lincoln cents in history. Collectors were stunned when the first one surfaced. Imagine holding a penny that everyone else would toss aside, only to learn it was secretly worth a fortune. Dealers scrambled. Auction houses couldn't believe the bidding wars that broke out. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One ordinary man discovered one of these 1944 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies in his pocket change. He nearly spent it on a candy bar. Instead, he showed it to a local collector. The coin was authenticated and later sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Years later, another example shattered records, approaching $1.2 million at auction. Why? Because this tiny coin carries a mystery. It should have been struck with copper like the rest. But the few that weren't, the survivors of minting chaos, are so rare, experts estimate fewer than a couple dozen may exist. That's rarer than most gold coins. That's why collectors call it the $1 million penny. Here's the detail most people miss. Look at the date, 1944. Now flip the coin over. If it doesn't have a mint mark, no D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, and if the weight or color seems unusual, you may have something extraordinary. Some weigh just 2.7 grams instead of the normal 3.11 because of those steel planchets. Others may look duller, with a silvery tint instead of that classic copper shine. That's the telltale sign. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these. Auction houses report waiting lists for serious buyers. Every time one comes to light, the coin world explodes with chatter. Because this isn't just a penny. It's a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. But here's the twist. Many people pass them up. They assume it's just an old, dirty cent. They overlook the missing mint mark. They never stop to weigh it. And in doing so, they let $1 million miracle slip through their fingers. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And it could happen again. Imagine emptying your drawer tonight, running your fingers across a pile of forgotten pennies, and spotting that 1944 date with no mint mark. Your heart races. You flip it over. You realize you might be holding one of the rarest coins in U.S. history. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. At first glance, it looks like any ordinary Lincoln cent. Brown, worn, unassuming. The kind of penny you'd ignore at the bottom of your change jar. But look closer. On this coin, a tiny, almost ghost-like marking tells a story that has stunned collectors for decades. A story that could turn one lucky finder into a millionaire overnight. Back in 1952, the U.S. Mint was striking billions of pennies. Copper was cheap, the presses were hot, and Lincoln cents rolled off the machines by the millions every single day. But somewhere, somehow, something went wrong. One press created a coin unlike any other. Instead of the crisp S mint mark we expect from the San Francisco Mint, a bizarre, mispunched mark appeared, what experts now call the RID S. Collectors were shocked when the first example surfaced. How could a mint mark look so wrong? Some saw what looked like extra letters, as if a faint RIT had been etched beside the S. Others whispered it was a die clash, an experimental punch, or even a rogue engraver leaving his hidden signature. For years, people argued, was it real or just a damaged coin? But then came the auction that changed everything. A single 1952 Lincoln penny, carrying this strange RID S marking, crossed the block at a major coin sale. The bidding started low, a few hundred, maybe $1,000. Collectors leaned in, dealers held their breath. Within minutes, the price exploded. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, and then the hammer fell at over $1.3 million. That's right. A single penny, over $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Rumors spread that more examples might exist. Hidden away in dusty cigar boxes, locked in family safes, or even rattling around in someone's pocket change right now. Dealers rushed to search their inventories. Collectors pulled out their magnifying glasses. Suddenly, every 1952 penny became a mystery waiting to be solved. And here's the part that gives people chills. Experts still don't agree how many of these coins are out there. Some say fewer than 5. Others claim the minting error could have lasted weeks, producing dozens. But the truth is, no one knows, which means the next discovery could belong to anyone. Maybe even you. One man found his copy while rolling coins for the bank. He almost spent it without looking twice. Only when a coin shop clerk spotted the strange RID S did he realize he was holding a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Imagine handing over a penny and being told it's worth more than your house. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. When you examine a 1952 San Francisco penny, focus on the mint mark just below the date. A normal S is smooth, rounded, and clear. But the RID S looks jagged, distorted, with faint extra lines almost resembling letters stacked into the mark. Under magnification, it seems like the mint punch slipped or was struck more than once, leaving a haunting, layered effect. That strange imperfection, that ghost of writ, is the key. But be careful. Millions of ordinary 1952 pennies exist, and most are worth only a few cents. Damaged coins, scratched coins, or counterfeits often trick beginners. Don't be fooled. Real writ pennies show consistent traits, and collectors who know what to look for can spot the difference in seconds. So why does this matter? Because history has a way of hiding miracles in plain sight. One overlooked coin, one tiny mistake, one chance discovery can transform an ordinary person into someone who holds $1 million rarity. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It's the 1951 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin so deceptively common, so unremarkable, that millions of people have passed it by without a second thought. But here's the twist. A single, tiny, hidden detail on one of these coins has turned an everyday cent into a collector's miracle. Collectors call it the ghost penny, because it shouldn't even exist the way it does. No mint mark, no sign that it came from San Francisco or Denver. Just a plain, unmarked cent, and yet, buried inside its simple face lies the power to change someone's life. But how could a penny from 1951, a year when the U.S. Mint produced over 1 billion Lincoln cents, suddenly be worth a fortune? The answer lies in a strange error, a misstep in the minting process so rare, so subtle, that most dealers missed it for decades. And then, one day, a collector spotted the difference. First, he thought it was nothing, just another old wheat penny, tarnished with age. But something about the rim, something about the strike, it felt wrong. When experts examined it, the truth exploded like a lightning bolt through the coin world. This wasn't just another penny. This was a once-in-a-generation minting mistake. A coin struck in conditions so unusual that it should never have reached circulation. But it did. And the few that survived? They've become the stuff of legend. Dealers were shocked. Collectors were stunned. Stories began to spread. Of a penny discovered in a coffee can, another rescued from a jar of loose change in someone's attic. And when the hammer fell at auction, jaws dropped. A single 1951 Lincoln wheat penny without a mint mark. The right kind, the rare survivor, crossed the block for nearly $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Once that sale hit the news, everyday people rushed to their drawers, their jars, their dusty piggy banks. They began hunting, searching, hoping. Because if one man could pull $1 million out of his pocket change, why not them? And here's the chilling part. These coins are still out there, hidden, forgotten, slipped into circulation, waiting silently for someone with sharp enough eyes to uncover them. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The average 1951 wheat penny is worth only a few cents. Even in uncirculated condition, most barely crack more than a few dollars. But the rare no mint mark error, with its specific strike anomalies, its slightly off-center impression, its razor-sharp details that shouldn't exist, that's the golden ticket. That's the penny that dealers are willing to fight for, and collectors will pay almost anything to own. Imagine the feeling. Flipping over a coin you've held 1,000 times before, only to realize this one is different. Realizing that what you thought was pocket change is suddenly $1 million miracle. Collectors compare the thrill to finding buried treasure. It's like discovering a secret door in your own home that leads to a fortune you never knew existed. And here's the warning. Most people overlook it. They spend it. They dismiss it. They toss it into Coinstar machines without a second thought. That's why these rare survivors are so elusive, so dangerous to miss. So how do you know if you've found it? Look closely. The genuine 1951 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark will appear at first to be an ordinary Philadelphia issue. But you must check the strike. Search for signs of a stronger, crisper detail than usual, especially on Lincoln's coat and beard. Look for unusually sharp wheat stalks on the reverse. Pay attention to the rim. An abnormal thickness can be the giveaway. And above all, confirm that there is absolutely no mint mark under the date. Avoid the trap of wishful thinking. Most 1951 pennies are worth little. But if your coin shows those razor-sharp strike details, with no mint mark and a flawless, near-perfect surface, you might be holding the impossible point. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector found his in an inherited jar of coins, untouched for 50 years. These stories aren't myths. They're real. And they prove one thing: lightning can strike in the most ordinary of places. Think about it. Right now, tucked inside an old envelope, lying forgotten in a shoebox, sitting in the back of a kitchen drawer, there could be a 1951 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark, waiting to be discovered. And when the next one surfaces, the coin world will erupt once again. Because history has shown, time and time again, that this humble penny can be worth not just thousands, not just hundreds of thousands, but over $1 million. So the next time you're holding a handful of change, stop, look, search, because the coin that could change your life forever may already be in your hands. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.